Now, as we saw earlier in the programme, British Labour Party leader Keir Starmer was in Dublin today meeting political leaders, including the President and the Taoiseach. When I spoke to him a short time ago, I first asked him for his attitude to British government plans to introduce legislation to unilaterally change the Northern Ireland Protocol.
I don't think they should introduce legislation. I think that it is quite possible with the protocol to make it work. Of course, there are some difficulties with it, I understand that, but what's required is statecraft, negotiation, trust, hard work around the negotiating table. And that's what's needed here, not legislation that would undermine, possibly breach international law. So there is a way forward here, and it's based on trust. That's in short supply with this Prime Minister, which is why we're having this discussion. And as someone who cares deeply about the relationship between Ireland and the UK, cares deeply about Northern Ireland, I'm very concerned at the lack of trust that there is in the process at the moment.
OK, you mentioned breaches of international law. The Attorney-General, Suella Braverman, seems to be convinced that, in fact, there would be no breach of international law. Now, you're a lawyer yourself. What do you make of that?
Well, look, we haven't seen the draft legislation yet, so obviously we need to wait to see it. But everything indicates that it's likely to undermine or breach international law. And my Labour Party is not going to act in breach of international law. I know there are many Conservative MPs who are concerned about breaching international law. The United Kingdom keeps its word when it comes to international agreements, and therefore there should be no question of breaching international law.
There is also another problem, though, because we have the DUP who are saying they will not allow the Assembly to work, they will not allow the Executive to work unless there are changes to the protocol. Now, they haven't said abolition of the protocol, but they have said changes. So they are insisting on this legislation. They are insisting on seeing this legislation implemented precisely because they don't trust Boris Johnson if they agree to let the institutions work before that.
Well, I've listened to their concerns, of course, and understand the concerns that there are about any barriers. Nobody wants barriers and checks across any of these borders. Of course we don't. I think that they can be discussed and negotiated. We've got a long way, actually, in dealing with very many of the problems. But going down the road of legislation which will breach international law, therefore it's wrong in principle, and will actually hold back the negotiations, which in the end will be the only way to resolve this, is wrong in my view. We can get on, we can make the protocol work. I talked to businesses here last night in Dublin. I'm speaking to businesses in Belfast as soon as I arrive there. They can work under the protocol, they want it to work, and they are saying to politicians, get around the table, solve these final problems out, don't go down the route of legislation.
There is a wider issue. The Independent Office for Budget Responsibility in the UK says British trade will be 15% lower, productivity 4% lower because of Brexit. The OECD yesterday said the UK will have the lowest growth in the G7 next year, partly because of Brexit. The only region in Britain outside of London with GDP above pre-pandemic levels is Northern Ireland, which remains in the single market. Isn't the answer to all of this for the UK to go back into the single market?
This issue of low growth has been going on for the full 12 years of this Conservative government. It's the Achilles heel of our economy. We've had 12 years of Conservative government, 12 years of low growth in the entirety of that. So there's no way of saying this is all a Brexit issue, because it's not. It's a lack of strategic direction. It's a lack of ambition on the part of the government. It's a lack of the right relationship with business.
But why is Northern Ireland doing better than other UK regions outside of London?
Well, Northern Ireland is doing well. Of course, it is, in the position of being able to do east-west and north-south trade. That is a good thing for Northern Ireland. I want Northern Ireland to thrive. But the questions of the low growth in our economy have been there for over a decade, and they have to be addressed by a government that has the ambition to turn our economy around.
The 2019 Labour manifesto described the exit deal deeply flawed and a sellout, and you said you'd get rid of it. Now, obviously you didn't win a mandate on that in 2019, but the deal is still the same deal. And we've seen the sunny uplands of Brexit don't exist. The best Jacob Rees-Mogg can come up with is louder vacuum cleaners.
Well, look, We had a referendum, the decision was taken to leave the EU, we have now left the EU. There's no case for reversing that, there's no case for re-entry. What we need to do is to build on that agreement, and the way to build on that agreement is to use the sort of statecraft that was used in the Good Friday Agreement. If I think about the hurdles, the obstacles in the way of those negotiating the Good Friday Agreement, I genuinely think we can build on this agreement, we can deal with the problems of the protocol, but it does take hard graft, it takes trust, statecraft, and as I list these things, you can see why I'm about to say that for the Prime Minister, they are attributes which I fear he simply doesn't have, and that's why I say he is the single biggest obstacle to progress now.
You said last month that if you were fined by Durham police over the so-called Beergate incident, you'd resign. Have you heard from them yet?
Well, yes, I have. There's a process going on. I'm absolutely clear that there was no breach of the rules, but obviously the police need to carry out their investigation.
Do you expect to be in number 10?
What we've seen this week is the majority of MPs saying that we want to see the back of the Prime Minister. I think that the majority across the country want to see the back of this government. And I can tell you that my Labour Party is ready for a general election any time.
You must be somewhat glad that Boris Johnson is still in office but gravely weakened.
I don't mind who is in office. I'm not surprised that his own MPs now have demonstrated that they don't have confidence in him. But, if they don't have confidence in him, then how can you possibly think that the country could or even should have confidence in him?
Keir Starmer, thanks for joining us on 6 One.
Thank you very much.